If you are wondering how the world might end, don't look to the future. Look to the past, exactly 3,200 years ago. There is a year in history when civilization didn't just collapse. Humanity had to hit the reset button and start everything from scratch. Palaces burned, kings who were thought to be gods were abandoned by their people, and humans even forgot how to write. Today, I will tell you the story of history's first global apocalypse, the day civilization committed suicide. Imagine a civilization, a world just like ours, with global trade networks, kings writing diplomatic letters, and art and architecture at their peak. The gold of Egypt, the invincible chariots of the Hittites, the engineering marvels of the Mycenaean walls. Everything looked so strong, so eternal. But then, something incredible happened. Around 1200 BC, in a short period of just 50 years, the entire known world was wiped off the map. Cities were burned at temperatures high enough to melt stone. Survivors fled to the mountains, and a dark age, lasting 300 years, began. Historians call this the Bronze Age collapse. This is history's biggest cold case. So, who was the killer? Was it the mysterious sea peoples discussed for centuries? Or was it the system itself, in which people no longer believed? In this video, you will see not only a war, but how beliefs changed and how our modern world was born. If you are ready, let's open the file. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to catch these historical journeys. To understand the horror of the collapse, we first need to feel what was lost. We are going to the 13th century BC. This was history's first globalized world. The world was ruled by a club of great powers, just like today's G8 summits. Egypt, the Hittites, Babylon, and Assyria. These kings were not enemies, they were a family. The warrior merchants of the Aegean, the Mycenaeans, Greece. The Mycenaeans are the ancestors of the heroes in Homer's Iliad, Achilles, Agamemnon, Odysseus. They were tough, disciplined, and ambitious. The Mycenaeans had absorbed the peaceful Minoan civilization before them and militarized their culture. Their palaces were surrounded by massive walls. These walls were built with such huge stones that later generations thought giants built them, calling them Cyclopean walls. At the very top, there was a king called the Wanax. It was a completely central system. Farmers brought wheat, olive oil, and wool to the palace. The palace stored it and distributed it to the people, officials, soldiers, craftsmen, through rations. They were excellent sailors, but also pirates. For them, the line between trade and piracy was very thin. They used the Dendra panoply, one of the oldest known full-body armors in history. This armor looked like a walking tank made of bronze plates. The Iron Fist of Anatolia, the Hittite Empire, Turkey. Ruling in the harsh geography of Anatolia, they were a military and diplomatic superpower. They were disciplined, religious, and diplomatic. They were known as the Land of 1,000 Gods because they added the gods of every people they conquered to their own pantheon. They showed tolerance to everyone. They possessed the most feared chariot units of the era. While Egyptian chariots carried 2 people, Hittite chariots carried 3. This gave them an advantage in close combat. They were among the first civilizations to know how to process iron, keeping it a state secret. They signed the Treaty of Kadesh with Egypt, the first written peace treaty in history. Their kings were great kings, and they valued international law highly. The Golden Kingdom of the Nile, Egypt. This was the era of pharaohs like Ramesses II, obsessed with grandeur, abundance, and immortality. Thanks to the Nile River, they had massive agricultural production. They used this grain to sell to other countries or as a diplomatic tool. They owned gold mines coming from Nubia in the south. In diplomatic letters, other kings would always ask the pharaoh, "Send me gold, for gold is as common as dust in your land." There was a multi-layered bureaucracy. Priests were very powerful. They built massive temples and monuments. The heart of trade, the Levant city-states, Ugarit and Canaan. The coasts of modern-day Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. These were not vast empires but rich trading cities. It was where merchants of every nation met. The first alphabet in history was developed here. It was a buffer zone between the Hittites and Egypt, paying taxes to both sides to protect their wealth. They processed copper from Cyprus and tin from the east, selling it to the world. Also, the production of the very valuable purple dye from sea snails was here. Mesopotamian powers, Assyria and Babylon. Babylon, it was the cultural capital. Medicine, astronomy and mathematics were at their peak here. It was like the university of the Bronze Age. Assyria, rising in northern Iraq, controlling trade routes and becoming increasingly militaristic. They would become the great empire of fear in the Iron Age after the collapse. But in this period, they were still a trade-focused kingdom. When we read the Amarna letters found in Egypt, we see kings addressing each other as "my brother." This was not random politeness. It was a message saying, "We are equals, we rule the world." The language of communication was Akkadian, the English of that era. Kings' special messengers carried these clay tablets thousands of miles on horseback. However, not everyone was a brother. The hierarchy was strict. Kings of small city-states like Ugarit or Canaan could never say, "my brother," to the pharaoh. They started their letters like this: "My son, my lord, I am the dust beneath your feet. I bow at your feet 7 times and 7 times. The system was built on this absolute obedience and balance. The Mycenaeans in Greece used a writing system we call Linear B. But this writing wasn't for poetry, it was entirely for accounting. How many liters of olive oil entered the palace? How many sheep were taken as tax? Everything was recorded. The palace economy was so centralized that without the scribes keeping these tablets, the state could not breathe. So why did these kings need each other? Because of one single word: bronze. The technology of the era depended on bronze. To make bronze, you need copper and tin. Copper came from Cyprus, but tin was very rare. It had to come all the way from Afghanistan. The Uluburun Shipwreck, found off the coast of Kars, Turkey, is the greatest archaeological proof of how massive this trade network was. They conducted trade under the name of gift exchange, but they could be very moody with each other. In one letter, the king of Babylon complained to the pharaoh about the poor quality and small amount of gold sent to him. "My brother, the gold you sent is insufficient. In your country, gold is as common as dust. Why have you been so stingy with me? Is this the value of our friendship?" The world was literally deeply connected, and this interdependence would be the system's weakest point. If one link broke, the chain would fall apart. While the system was working perfectly, the first blow came not from humans, but from Mother Nature. Approaching 1200 BC, the climate changed suddenly and drastically. A mega-drought began in the region, lasting 300 years. Here, a very important psychological break occurred. For the people of that era, kings were not just rulers, they were representatives of the gods on earth. Their job was to control nature and bring abundance. But when the drought didn't end, and on top of that, earthquakes began, things changed. It wasn't just the weather, the earth itself brought disaster. Stanford University geophysicist Amos Nuur's theory is quite strong. Between 1225 and 1175 BC, the fault lines of the eastern Mediterranean unzipped like a zipper. In the ruins of Troy, Mycenae, Hattusa, Ugarit, and Enkomi in Cyprus, earthquake damage, crushed skeletons, and cracked walls were found. When the drought was followed by earthquakes destroying the walls, the people began to ask, "Why can't our king protect us? Have the gods abandoned him?" The Hittite king begging Egypt, saying, "My people are dying of hunger, this is a matter of life and death," was not just a collapse of food supply, but a collapse of divine authority. The people no longer trusted their kings. The immune system had collapsed. Right in the middle of this chaos, those terrifying sails appeared on the horizon. These people, whom the Egyptians called strangers from the sea, were not just looters. They were armed refugees fleeing the climate crisis in the north. Among them were Philistines, Sardinians, and displaced peoples. They had no single emperor. This was a headless monster. The Sea Peoples were actually a coalition. The Peliset had their own chief, the Shurden had their own, and the Lycians had theirs. They came down like an avalanche from the north. First they burned those massive Mycenaean palaces in Greece. Then they crossed the Aegean and hit the southern and western coasts of Anatolia. The Hittite capital, Hattusa, was inland, but the Sea Peoples hit the ports, which were the Hittites' gateway to the world. With these attacks, all Hittite connections were cut, and with the collapse of the supply chain, they were destroyed by famine and internal rebellions. Then they looted Cyprus and destroyed the capital, Enkomi. They took the copper mines and riches there, strengthening their fleets even more. The greatest tragedy occurred in Ugarit, the center of trade. The last king of Ugarit wrote, "My father, enemy ships came. They burned my cities. The country is defenseless. The enemy is destroying us." This letter was never sent. Before the tablet could be taken out of the oven, the city was burned, and Ugarit was buried under the sands. The last fortress standing was Egypt. The last great pharaoh, Ramesses III, trapped the Sea Peoples in the marshes of the Nile Delta and destroyed them. Ramesses proudly had this inscribed on his temple: "Those who reached my boundary, their seed is not, their heart and their soul are finished forever and ever. They were poured out into the sea before my weapons." Egypt had won, but actually it had lost. The treasury was empty, the army was exhausted. When the pharaoh could not pay his workers' wages, the first labor strike in history occurred. Egypt survived, but its spirit died. It never became that old superpower again. When the war ended, no one was left from that magnificent club of brothers. When palaces in Greece were destroyed, that linear B writing, used only for tax collection, was also forgotten. But this destruction caused something unexpected: freedom. If those god kings and oppressive empires hadn't collapsed, a small tribe in the Canaan region, the Israelites, could never have become independent. When Egypt's pressure lifted, they established their own kingdoms in the mountains, and the foundations of monotheistic religions were laid. The people held a grudge against the old god kings who could not protect them, and began to seek salvation not in palaces, but in the sky. If the strict palace system of the Mycenaeans hadn't collapsed, democracy would never have flourished in ancient Greece. If the Phoenicians hadn't been set free, they wouldn't have been able to spread the alphabet we use today to the world. The giants of the Bronze Age died, but upon their ashes, our faiths, our alphabet, and our democracy were born. The Great Collapse in 1177 BC was an apocalypse for those living on that day. But for us, it was the birth pangs of the modern world. So, what do you think? Today's world is deeply connected, just like the Bronze Age. Do you think we are on the verge of a similar system collapse? Definitely share your thoughts in the comments. Goodbye.